Let's hope.
Hello.
Hi, Ivan.
Oh, okay, great.
You're on mute, is it? You don't know.
Yeah, my natural setting is mute.
So how rate is today? I haven't seen the pre-market yet.
Today it's kind of flat. The
We're not
futures
live.
is flat. Are we?
John, are you live? Okay, great. Oh.
Pre-market is flat, so it's okay. But I mean, it's crazy lah. The past few.
But this I'm quite scared, no? I see red.
Very auspicious of Chinese New Year coming, so red market.
That's right. Well, then you need to go find job already.
Yes, I recently just been thinking, okay, well, time to find job.
Yeah, because you want to buy. Mr. Crypto here is hoping for a stronger dip for the crypto market.
If you have lots of money and a lot of spare cash, then yeah, you hope for a dip lah. But if you're 100% in, then
yeah, it's all your
no choice.
You don't want to continue dipping.
But you're stupid enough to put 100% in. It's your fault.
Hey, it's a strategy. It's not stupid. It works. If it works, it works. It's not stupid.
But just like roulette works also.
I mean, yeah, it's a strategy too, but you just gamble the money you want to gamble, right?
It's stupid until it works, then it's not.
I also have a retirement strategy. The retirement strategy is 3-step plan. Buy Toto, win Toto, retire.
Buy Toto, question mark. Then win Toto.
Win Toto, I admit the second step is pretty hard, but it's doable. I've seen people done it.
Right, and the doctor, right? Yeah, my uncle's good friend.
Which is the more anecdotal stuff that we talk about more of that later on. What's up?
I messaged them already.
Yeah, sorry. Keep forgetting that.
No, but
Okay. Yeah.
Sweet lah.
See that. Yeah. Oh,
Let me.
okay.
Is it the same stream link? Let me check. Okay, it looks like it's live. Okay, yep, I can see it now.
Yep. So yeah, we'll do a quick one. I'm Ernie, this is Gareth, with Ivan, Joseph, and Joel to join us. We're from the Drunken Ramblings podcast. And we just meet new people every week, different guests, different stories, different topics, and just chit chat about everything. And yeah, join in and check it out sometime.
All right. Hey guys, Ivan, one of the hosts from the Drunken Ramblings podcast. I'm the alcoholic, unemployed guy of the group. Yeah. But also the most handsome, because Joel isn't here yet. Once he joins, then he takes number one. All right, passing on to Joseph. Take it away.
I'll be 1/4 of the Drunken Rambling podcast. I've been away for some time and I'm back. So back to a bigger group this time. So we'll see. Interesting group we have today. So yeah, nice to be back.
Hi everyone. So I'm Rindo. I'm from India. I've been living in Singapore for the last 10 years, and I'm the host of the podcast Living It Up in Lion City. Talk about like society, culture, history, and stuff when I can. So that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Joel said he's waiting for you to let him in. Joel, Joel, it's your turn to share about the podcast and tell people what we're about.
Hi. Oh, so we are the Drunken Rambling podcast. We basically meet people almost every week. We meet interesting people, have interesting conversations, share perspectives on different things. And yeah, if you're interested in that, do check us out.
Where can they find us, Joel?
Oh, that's a good question. Why don't Ivan take it away?
Oh, wow. Okay, you can check us out on Spotify, Instagram, where else? Apple
What's our handle,
Podcasts.
Ivan? What's our handle?
The Drunken Ramblings Podcast. Oh, the short form is TDRP. And then, okay, Joel, your turn to introduce yourself.
So we're doing this again.
Yeah, we have to restart from scratch.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Joel. I'm from the Drunken Ramblings podcast, and as you can see, I'm a big fan of Ivan here. Yeah, so he's been my role model ever since I was young. So I always want to grow up to be someone like him. Someone so charismatic, as handsome, as charming as him.
You don't let shy.
So yeah, that's about me. I'm just a big Ivan fan. Moving on.
Sure. Once again, available on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. So it's Living It Up in Lion City. So check it out.
Oh, nice.
Hey, cheers. Okay, wait. My Carlsberg can is green, so it's not going through. All right, here you go.
I think that's a very good question. So what exactly is woke? I think I found the perfect answer to what is woke. It is a simple past tense of wake.
So I just
Thank
woke up.
you. I'm so enlightened, Joe.
Okay, round of applause.
And end of podcast.
I am so clapping right now.
Okay, but it's a
That
legit
was sublime,
it's a
bro.
legit question, right? Like what exactly is woke? Like it spans across so many different things. Like what you can use it in finance, you can use it in being politically correct, in terms of religion. I guess it just spans. There's no like one definition for it, is there? Like, do you all know if there's a definition for woke? Yeah.
So I would like to take a very generous definition of woke. I personally feel that, being woke is about, of course, there's the original definition, and of course, there's the mutated one, which we're seeing today, which everybody hates. But I think the spirit of being woke is to be socially engaged, like if you're living in a particular community or a society, you need to show that you are, part of it. And part of showing that is to be engaged. And this includes, speaking up about issues pertaining to that particular community or society, showing some sort of activism, essentially. And I believe that everyone has that element of activism, being that agent of change, so to speak. So I feel like that's what woke is about, contemporary definitions notwithstanding. So personally, I feel that everybody can be an activist with every little action, and that includes something as simple as a retweet. I know it's hokey at this point, but but like, of course, there are some downstream issues with that, and I hope that we can, explore that in this episode. But I do believe that wokeness is also about an element of activism, and it kind of shows that you care, in whichever community and society that you live in and you're part of. So that element of, wanting to do something for the betterment of that society is what being wokeness is about. It is a generous definition, but I think that's what I believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for me, I think being woke has a lot to do with like having time and privilege. Because like you really need to have time and like money in the bank, right? So you don't have to worry about the basic essentials.
That's true. Yeah.
Then you can go out and really like care about things that go beyond what might not have impacted you before. I mean, unless something has directly impacted you, you might not have thought about it, right? And it's also like access to education, I guess, because you really need to be educated at a certain level, and then you would also bother to read up about certain issues. If not, I feel like, most people just don't care, and then they'll just move on with their lives, and then no time to be woke. You don't really see people struggling day to day talking too much about woke culture unless it's impacting them directly.
Yeah, and maybe I can build on. I actually agree with a lot on what Rindo said. And in my definition would be to be alert to injustice, something like that, along that line, that bridge. But I think when we talk about woke right now, it has mutated, like Rindo mentioned, into a form where it's overly aggressive, overly extreme to the point of alertness. And then the activism come into play and they do some radical stuff. And then that's the definition we kind of associate woke with right now.
Yeah, it's very black and white now.
Yeah. So,
right or wrong, yes or no, and then that becomes very lazy.
Yeah. There's no middle ground, no silver lining. One or the other, you're in with or out,
Joseph, what do you think?
Yeah, I think everyone's got their own opinion of what being woke is, depending on like what everyone just said, where you're born, the kind of education you've had, what has impacted you, what hasn't impacted you. So I really don't think there's anyone that's right or wrong. It's what we do with this frame of mind that we have of what being woke is, and what we do with that matters. I think that's what really, that's who cares what the hell the definition is. It's what you do with what we define as woke is to us that really matters, and what that positively does to the people around us that really matters. So yeah,
I think the issue becomes, right, when the labels are being thrown around without clear definitions, and it becomes this thing where either it becomes derogatory or it becomes a sort of rallying call for the wrong reasons. Do you understand? It's like you could point to like any one given topic and say that, like, because this is woke, we shouldn't care about it. Or similarly, in another vein, let's say some other dominant political party in some other unknown small island nation somewhere in the South China Sea kind of have this rallying cry and say that, look, if you're not supporting me, you're not woke. And I think that's like, it becomes this like the definitions of things matter, and that we should consider like, how do we how do we compartmentalize and how do we categorize things to the point where it becomes meaningful, right? I understand that for you the meaning comes from within, the introspection part of it, but I think in order for us to engage meaningfully with others, we have to also be clear about what we're talking about.
But John, I mean, I do have a counterpoint to that, in the sense that, like, any word that becomes popular, it's like, Twitter has this way of taking a word and just running it to the ground, right? Like, just beating that fucking dead horse. And so, like, regardless of how we define a word and how we, apply a scope to it, so to speak, over time, it becomes popular. People use it out of context. It becomes like you overused so much, and then people are like, you know what, we need a new word. And then, we latch onto that word and then ad infinitum, it just goes on over and over again. So sometimes we're like, we can argue about the semantics all the time, but over time, as soon as a word becomes popular, like, it just then becomes a downhill journey to, overuse and abuse, etc., etc.
Yeah, before woke, right, people were saying like PC, politically correct. So maybe woke could be like an evolution from PC, because that word's being used so many times already.
So
I think
I will say that PC and woke are like two complete. Okay, so out of everybody here, I think I'm the only one who hasn't shared the definition yet. So maybe I just share my definition, and we can move forward from there. The way that I will define woke, right, is a very particular way of thinking about the world in terms of the hierarchy of oppression or imagined oppression. So if you imagine, right, for example, we say something like, okay, we need more women CEOs, right? I think that's like, for some reason or another, it becomes a perfectly legit thing to say. But if I were to say we need more male CEOs, then once again, for some reason, that kind of got flipped on his head.
Then you become the bad guy.
Yeah. So in a sense, right, the male and femaleness of the CEO doesn't really matter. Not to us or not to me, but when we talk about such things, right? I mean, so once you notice once we twist the word, it's just a single word, right? The entire kind of like social dynamic, the connotation of it changes drastically, and people have very, very negative feelings towards one over the other.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the wokeness of it comes in, right? We kind of look subconsciously or consciously, we view the world through an extremely different lens when it comes to, oh my god, my cats, this is real LongKangKitties. Hey, stop it. Okay.
Yeah, mine are out there.
Yeah. So it becomes this thing where, we think we can say one thing about a certain group, but the moment we say the same thing about the next group, then it becomes a social faux pas. And I think that's where wokeness becomes a bit problematic for me, especially when we don't know the rules. And according to going with what Rindo has said, the word can become twisted, it can shift meaning, and it becomes once again problematic in terms of how people use the term for their own gains.
Yep, for sure.
All right.
I personally don't really think I have a definition for woke, but after listening to all of you guys, I think perhaps Rindo, maybe you've captured the closest one that I think is what woke means. And one of the biggest reasons why there are so many people turning against it, I think, is because it gets to the point where it's really tiring. When it feels like, how do you call yourself woke when there's so many problems in the world that you don't have a lot of access to information or knowledge or first-hand experience? So, like what Ernie was saying just now as well, like how do you
even go and do something or be an activist about something if you have not lived through that problem. I think we'll take Christopher Reeve as one example. Like, there are people, when he fell off the horse and broke his neck, there are people who are saying that, this fucker has never spent a single cent of his money on quadriplegics or paraplegics until he broke his neck. Like, yeah, but that's because he didn't know about these problems until he broke his neck, right? So I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel sometimes people go too far, and it's a bit unfair for people who either don't have time or don't have evil word, the privilege to have time or spare money to come and understand all these problems.
Jerry, I think you raised a very pertinent point, and I think it's also related to what Ernie said earlier about having time and privilege to talk about work subjects and stuff.
Yeah.
So I will be honest, I am kind of left leaning in a lot of respects, but there's also a lot of topics and aspects that I'm not familiar with, and so I cannot with any conviction say that I espouse these causes until I understand them better. I think to add on to the example of Christopher Reeve, a more local example would be on the other extreme would be the recent case of Miss Singapore with a particular dress, where she spreads this and says "Stop Asian Hate," and I think everybody did pile on her saying that, but what about the homegrown discrimination that's happening? Why are you looking at that overseas and stuff like that? So I think that's the other end of it, right? Like, to be woke is to be aware of issues, but then if you're going to be selectively woke, that's also a problem. So, I think that's also something that I struggle with too. It's like when I first saw that news article, I was like, yeah, this is clearly a case of jumping onto the bandwagon. So those problems do exist.
So going on with this, right? Maybe we also can kind of have a bit of a raise of hands, right, among all of us. Do you which of you consider yourself woke?
I raised down my hand.
So
I am not woke.
So you're the opposite of woke, like.
Yes.
You're the anti-woke. Okay.
I admit I don't know a lot of things.
I mean, in general, all of us would be quite woke in the original definition, right? Like, if you're saying, gay rights should be allowed, then I'm pretty sure none of us would be like, no, they shouldn't be allowed. So in that sense, we are all quite there. It's just we're not on the extreme ends of wokeness.
I think
Because the mutated definition,
version,
which is
what
that's why we're going to call ourselves label us woke, right, in the first place.
But by having a question like, would you consider yourself woke? Then by that immediate question, what's on the other end is that you're not, right? And by that question in itself, you're putting people in boxes, which by definition, being woke is not to be like that.
Well, Joseph, I will say that I will not say that I'm woke, but I will say that I'm anti-woke.
Yeah.
Huge drop, like a rabbit hole, going down.
I'm happy to be put in that box.
Yes, exactly. That's my point. And I think that's what tonight's discussion is about. It's not about what we think is being woke and not being woke, but what is it that we all cumulatively think we can be better individually by picking the right choice in what each of our lives have engaged in, because we all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different lives, right, from all over the place. So for whatever we see positively that we think we can do better is what we think is woke to us. It doesn't put us all in one box and then boom, okay, you're woke, done, that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna play a bit of a devil's advocate. I'm gonna be
go for it.
I'm gonna be the anti-woke guy here. Okay. The reason I'm the anti-woke guy, okay, I'll give my reasons. Okay, goes off my definition of the term woke. I don't see the world in terms of an oppressed and an oppressor class dichotomy. So if you ask me to support gay rights, I'll support gay rights, but only because, right, it's not because they're gays, it's because they're humans. So if I support, so there's a universal human right that should be established to all mankind, and that we shouldn't deprive any human of any one particular right because of whatever group, association, or affiliation that they adopt. Now, of course, this brings about like several different questions, like what is a right, so on and so forth. Like all this is like beyond and above what we will be talking about today. But I think what tends to happen, right, is that we kind of conflate a lot of different things together, and more what I'm starting to see is not so much of fighting for rights, but it's almost to the point where we are fighting for privileges, and it becomes this weird thing, right? So I personally I'm not for a lot of the woke messaging. I don't subscribe to this idea that as like in a place like Singapore there is oppression going on. Of course, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't see the world that way, and as a result, I think anybody who sees the world that way is inherently wrong, and therefore I'm anti-woke. So that's my position. That's my stance. Yeah. I'm gonna be the bad guy in this chat, but that's fine. Okay.
Well, I kind of understand very. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Rindo. Ivan never got a chance to actually say what he feels about this.
Okay, yeah, Ivan.
Oh, okay. All right. So my definition of being woke is like not being a sheep, and then so adding on to what Joseph said. So he made a good point of like how when people tell you to be woke, that is against the meaning of woke. Because for my definition of being woke, is like it's not being ignorant, it's being aware of what is society doing, why is it constructed, and then making your own decision. So when people tell you like, oh, you need to do blah blah blah, if not you're not woke, then that means you're not woke if you listen to them. Because being woke, you have to understand the issues and then come up with your own conclusion and then form your own stance.
Okay.
Nice.
So I'm anti-woke, but anti-woke of the mutated woke version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have as many brain cells as you guys, but this is just so freaking complicated to me. Like, it's
Actually,
like
not. Actually,
anti-woke.
not.
It's like
Anti-woke.
to me, right? It seems that you can never please everybody. You know, when you're on the woke side, you're fighting for
that's
a
not
cause.
the point. You see, the point isn't about pleasing people. I think that's the problem that we have here. We think that our conversation about woke and not is pleasing one side of the table, and then the other side is everyone who is against you. Which is why I say, John, you're not the enemy here. You're just another person who's had these opinions because you've lived a life that you've lived. And I could talk with you all day, but my point wouldn't be about convincing you to come on my side of the table, because the point is that we all lived a different life, right? And if somebody out here, even among the 5 of us, 6 of us here, say, no, I really don't think that gay people should be hired, right? Then who's to say that he's wrong or right? It's his or her thought process. It's his or her opinion, right? It's because the world has now crafted out an opinion that makes you feel you have to subscribe to this. If not, you're not part of the pool. Sorry, I don't want to take on too long. Rindo was saying something halfway before I cut him off just now.
No, please go ahead, Joseph. I mean, I think that's an interesting point worth exploring some more.
Yeah, so let me just get this on a little bit. So actually what I'm trying, the gay thing was just one part of it, but I'm trying to put this all in one concise conversation, which is, now, we're talking about being woke and this and that, but sometimes we tend to forget the simplest things, right? Which is what you said at the start of your introduction, that it's about, we don't even have to use big ass words like activism. It's about making a change. If you watch the movie Evan Almighty, ART, acts of random kindness, ARK, what ark, yeah, ark. He was building an ark, right? And then the guy says, the guy who acts as God says, acts of random kindness. And you don't need to be woke, or you don't need to run on the street and say more black people to be, put in Hollywood movies. It's about asking yourself, what is it that you stand for, right? And John, when you're talking about gay people, right? I wanna put this out there. I would hire gay people if they were the best people for the job. Among all of us here, if 3 of us were gay, right, and then all the other straight guys were fucking idiots at the job, I'd hire the gay people not because they were gays, but because they were good at the job. Simple as that. Period. It had nothing to do with their.
So
with
I
their
guess it kind of like goes back to my point of that. If you were to ask like a woke person, okay, like someone who truly subscribe to the ideology that there are oppressed groups out there, and if the purpose of wokeness, right, is to kind of like balance out the score sheet, so called, right? So in their mind they say, okay, like gay people have been oppressed for like 50, 60 years, or even further back, okay? Let's say in the context of Singapore with 3778, then what social justice is meant to do is to kind of like push gay people up to either be on par or even surpass the hetero people as a result of like historical injustices, which of course, I mean, it's a very problematic view to have. You run into all sorts of complications and whatnot, right? But in their mind, this makes sense, you see. And of course what you're describing is, like some sort of meritocracy lah, in some sense and some fashion, right? When you hire a person regardless of their mutable or immutable traits, we are looking for competence. Sure, fine, right? But not everybody thinks that way, and I think so. The purpose of today's conversation is to really kind of like hone in on kind of like specific things that we can all point to. So if I were to say, let's look at this square, we all understand what a square is, like all 4 sides are equal and so on and so forth, right? I can't point to a square, I can't point to a rectangle and say this is a square. And I think generally what I'm trying to accomplish with my conversations is to say, okay, if I point to this thing and I say woke, can we all agree on that? So I guess that's kind of like the point of this conversation. Alright, I'm gonna move on a little bit, and maybe let me just briefly talk about, or maybe let me ask the guests the type of wokeness that you have witnessed, either personally or through online causes, or basically something that you have seen that you imagine that it is woke. So I think, Ivan, you haven't spoken in a while. Maybe do you want to go ahead first?
All right, I'm going to start with a very extreme and contentious area of anti-vaccine. So the people who are anti-vax could go to you and say, oh, you're letting the government oppress you by injecting the vaccine into you. You did not do your knowledge.
That's a fucking great example. I love it.
So you're not woke. You take the vaccine, you're not woke. And then to them, it's like, they are the woke ones.
Yes.
And then you have extreme examples like the tennis player Djokovic. Yeah, it's like he can be the best. He can be the best tennis player, but he decides to die on the hill of anti-vax. Like what hill do you want to die on, right? Like what battle do you want to fight? You want to be the best tennis player, or you want to be an anti-vaxxer? And then he chose anti-vax. So it's very strange. Like that's what certain extreme levels of woke does to people.
Americans are calling him a hero.
Yeah.
Man, those are very woke people, man.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, take it. Bindu, take this. I know you want to.
Well, no, I wanted to say that, okay, so number one, the whole Iris Co incident, it is quite interesting that she named her group, Healing the Divide, as though it's some sort of contentious issue that, she's trying to be the bridge of. But ultimately, I do feel, earlier we talked about the definition of woke, right? Is to be aware, is to be engaged. So it is contingent on being informed. So if you are informed by delusions of your intelligence, then I wouldn't consider it woke, To them, sure. But really, I think there is a responsibility to be informed. There is a responsibility to, figure out where your stance, works, where your stance is correct. And it can be contentious. I completely understand that. But, I can't see that as woke, mostly because there's a difference between, being informed and being so caught up in your delusions that you're going to just double down. And that's what I feel is happening with Arisco. So that's just my take, though.
Anybody else?
Jerry, what do you think?
My views on vaccine and then people who don't want vaccines have changed quite a little bit in at least the past 6 months. I mean, personally, I still think that, hey, based on all the effects out there, you should still go get your vaccines. But I can understand if you don't want to. But personally, for me, I think in a way, I guess you can say that there's some level of oppression, right? Because in the way Singapore government is doing, it's really strong arming a lot of things through, and you got people losing their jobs. And this is a story related to me. So there's this old dude. He's passed away with COVID since. What happened was his wife is a stage 4 cancer patient, so high risk, and she went for her vaccine. The family is like, hey, you should go for your vaccine, but everyone went for the vaccine except for this old man, right? And this old man, he used to be employed as a fitness coach at a gym, so he's like a 70 plus 80-year-old guy working on. I think it narrows it down. If you know who he is, probably don't know their family and whatnot. I don't think there are many 80-year-olds teaching at a gym. So
doxing people, are we now?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, he's the kind of guy who's like, hey, I'm so I take care of myself. I work out. I eat right. So I don't want to inject all this kind of nonsense. And through that, because he didn't want to, he lost his job. Couldn't obviously go back to the gym to work, and he suffered depression, and finally he caught COVID and passed on. So this is actually my sister's friend's father, right? So several degrees of separation. So I think up to a certain point, I'm not siding on the anti-vax side any more than I was, which is very, very zero, right? But I think there are some things that could have been done or could have been worked around better, like John said, at the end of the day, whatever your decisions are, you're still human, and but unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, the decisions once made, the responsibility of the outcome is on you. So, he died because of it. So that's unfortunately the hill he really died on.
Too soon, Jerry. Too soon.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Okay.
Ernie, do you have anything or?
I mean, for every woke person complaining about like freedom, with POFMA and FICA, there's 100 more woke people trying to cancel Xia Xue every time she puts out a video, right? So it surprises me that they can't see it, that it's so similar that they're fighting these kind of things.
True.
And
There
Joel?
can be two different groups, though, right? It's not the same person going, hey, this is what I want, and then, hey, let's cancel this person. So
I mean, but most of them tend to do that, right? They complain about a lack of freedom with whatever, let's say, our government puts out there to restrict them, and then you also see them trying to cancel people hit left and right.
No, I tell you what's
Right.
the really funny part though. Like if you spend any time on this Facebook group called SG Opposition,
Oh my
Uh,
god.
so what you'll notice, right, is no matter what, right, the government is to blame.
Yeah.
If the government
Yeah.
if there's suddenly a surge of infection, government isn't doing enough. Then
Yes.
if there's like some lockdown, some restriction, oh man, the government is way overreaching. It's like look, I'm not a PAP psycho fan now, okay? Even though I keep saying I love the PAP, whatever, okay? I personally am not a fan of the PAP, but bloody hell, not everything is
You can't do that.
yeah. It's not like they are the. They have a certain vision, they have a certain path that they are taking, and they're kind of like riding or dying at with the path they've taken. Okay lah. So be it lah, right? They are in charge, then they do it. But this non-stop complaining about, they are never doing enough or they are doing too much. It's the same side of the coin to me lah. Yeah. So Joel, do you have any examples?
Well, I just think for me in today's society, like it's just very hard to have your own.
Oh, you're a bit
opinion.
soft.
Yeah, Joel.
Is it better?
Yeah, much
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, in today's society, I think it's just very hard to have your own opinion. You're always forced to be in one camp or the other. And if you're in one camp, the other camp will just blame you for it. There's never this, like, balance. So I'd rather just stay neutral. And I mean, to Joseph's point, right?
No, don't sit on the fence. No, don't be a Jerry.
Okay, so you see, if I choose
Joel.
one camp, like, you choose one camp is wrong. Stay on neutral also wrong. So, I mean, people also have to,
You have to take note, right? You choose one side, you're wrong 50% of the time. You choose the other side, you're wrong 50% of the time. You stay in the middle, both sides will whack you. Yes.
Yeah, the most hated people are the ones who vehemently stick on the fence because they are literally hated by both sides. So yeah.
Okay, then in this aspect, like, you're forced to have an opinion, right? If not, you're even worse off than than sticking to one camp. So, for example, right, like the feminist movement, they release movies like Charlie's Angels, Batwoman. They want to portray women in the very independent, strong, bright kind of hero. I understand where they're coming from, but the movies suck. It's not because they are women, but it's just because the movies suck. And if I actually voice it out to certain people, they'll be like, "Oh, you suck, you sexist, is it because they're just women? That's why, like, you don't give them the same."
Then did you give them the comparison of the original Charlie's Angels and the second version, and how the first one was fucking kick-ass and the
You
second
should
one
use the female Ghostbusters. That's a better
That's a
example.
better example.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that at the
Yes.
top of my head. Why
Exactly.
use female Ghostbusters?
But the
Okay,
female
okay,
Ghostbuster is like
that's-
extreme lah. That's like truly awful.
I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about also, right?
Yeah.
And then,
No, but
like,
exactly, that's the point. You see, I think it's not about having a opinion. Okay. Do you know there's this very famous quote? If you don't stand for something, you will fall for everything. I think that's what these guys are trying to ask you, Joel. I mean, everyone's got an opinion, just like how everyone's got an asshole. So it doesn't mean it's nice, right?
no, to me, right,
But-
I will have my own opinion, but I'll just keep it
Yeah.
to myself. I don't have to justify
Because you're
my reasons.
No, you don't have to
another
justify it. You don't have to justify it, but are you afraid to say it because are you afraid of what the world would think of you and then end up putting you in their box that they think you would need to be put in because of that?
I'm in that,
Get him, Joseph. Get him.
Before that, Joseph. So let's say someone doesn't agree with you.
Six months worth of holding back.
Let's say someone doesn't agree with you, Joseph. Do you have to take it to, like, do you have to prove your point just to show that you're
No.
right?
Not anymore. I'm not in that place anymore. Because the same way John had very conflicting opinions about certain things, that's because he has lived a life that has conjured up these ideas. And they do not make it wrong to any degree, right?
Okay, so you don't feel the need to justify your reasons across to that person?
No, I don't.
Then how
I
do you
don't.
respond? Like, let's say to this example also.
Go ahead.
No, let's say to this, someone agrees, try to argue with you, and then say that, I think that women shouldn't be portrayed in cinemas as heroes.
Okay.
You feel that you have to bring it up.
So then I will say this. I will say, if you are perfectly fine with paying $15 for watching a show with a full female cast, even though it's going to be crap for 2.5 hours, then by all means, it's your money. Go do it. I won't do it, but you go do it. That's it. I don't have to take your stance, but yeah, go ahead. You see what I mean?
In terms of like commercial aspects of it, right? If let's say we were just talking about like purely spending money, okay, like the free market will decide. Sure thing, but maybe we shift the conversation into a bit of a higher gear when we talk about, let's say, like politically charged topics, right? If we were to bring on the vaccine, for example. Now, you see the way that I look at it, right, in terms of my definition of what is woke, is that you view the world in a oppressor/oppressed class, And that's what the anti-vaxxers are doing. They're portraying themselves as some sort of like oppressed group of people where the government is so incredibly overreaching that they will come out with all sorts of justification for it. Now, in terms of the vaccine, right, I am not in favor of the government mandating it. But at the same time, right, I look at the evidence and I come to the conclusion that, you know what, vaccines are probably the best thing for us right now. So I mean, the government mandate, I have no choice but to take, but the evidence also suggests that I should take the vaccine. So, if you don't look at the world through this oppressor/oppressed class viewpoint, then you can reasonably come to certain conclusions on your own without coloring.
Just looking at the facts,
Yeah, without coloring the entire situation with your own, very specific narrative. And these people, they fucking love to sing their own song, right? They really think they're martyrs. They really think they're dying for freedom. They're dying for something like much bigger than themselves. They think they're so fucking edgy, but they're really fucking cringe. And here's the thing, right? It's the same for the woke guys as well. The woke people who thinks that like the Batwoman is the best fucking television series, and that Ghostbusters 2016 is the best fucking all-female movie cast ever. They look at the world in functionally the same way, and I think that's basically incorrect. That's my viewpoint, right? And when we talk about something that is like politically charged, right? We talk about 377A, for example. It's literally written into law that says that it's illegal for you to be gay, right? So what do we do about that in terms of whether you are woke or not woke? It's easy to say, look, I'm not going to spend fucking money on a movie that disagrees with me. But then when you're forced to kind of live a certain reality in a certain way, I think that's where things become a bit more complicated. Maybe I'll pass it back to Joseph to see if you have something.
I'll migrate. I'll just find a way to get myself out of it.
That's a point of privilege, right? Like that's not everybody can migrate. Like, if you're a poor gay guy,
neither can I. I don't live in the same kind of houses that Ernie's parents live in. But I would.
Fingers all talk by yourself.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't. Since he used the point of privilege, I'm saying that I don't live in a point of privilege. But I would take that chance if it was something that meant that much to me, because I know that life is not something that I have the privilege of living here. If I was gay and I had a partner, and I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, right? I think Rindu could really chime in here. In India, there's so many places where being gay is not just frowned upon, but you'd be like hacked, right?
Oh, absolutely, yep.
Yeah, so I think I know you've been out of there for a decade, but before that, as a kid, seeing stuff there, I'm sure you knew friends, or I don't know, like had to under the sheets, literally, had to live like that, and I can't even imagine how that must be living like that, right? See, I'm a Catholic, right? I was raised Catholic, and my mom would always tell us this: you can marry anybody, but don't marry a Muslim.
Oh my god!
What the fuck, right?
What the fuck, man?
Right? So now you tell me, right, Joan, I'll tell you something. We're stuck in a country where the fact is you take the jet because you are told to take the jet. Okay, and then you convince yourself that, okay, there's just enough for me to go by, because the point is, if you don't take it, you're not going to be able to enter Ion Orchard Mall. That's the truth.
I'm okay with not entering Orchard. I mean, look, if I thought that the vaccine is gonna really harm me, or I will happily join Iris Go and fucking I'm healing the divide. I'm healing all the divides. Okay?
No. Here's the thing. I never wanted to take it, and me on a personal basis. Sorry, I'm digressing, but I'll come back.
Yep.
For a very factual reason, was because I've got a pre-existing medical condition, right?
Yep.
But on no platform in Singapore during the early stages or in the middle did any medical institute, right, say we have done X amount of study, this is the data research, and we have come to the conclusion that people are pre-existing, this can happen, and so these are the things. They didn't do that. So what happens? If something happens to me, I've still got to take it up the ass and die on the bed. What are you gonna throw $300,000 in my family. No, you're going to do that.
So once again,
And you know
right,
that's not going to put back their life.
yeah, the lived reality of certain like politically activated policies and whatnot, right, will kind of like bring about the activism that Rindo was talking about.
Yes.
You see, so I think so maybe Rindo, you also can kind of like further expound on this particular topic. Whether is it the gays or is it the vax, or maybe in India or how you contrast it in Singapore, so on and so forth.
So no, that's actually an interesting angle because one thing that I wanted to bring up was that wokeness is useful in a society that's dysfunctional. I think that's the reality of it. If everything just doesn't work, if you are living in a situation where you are disadvantaged, or if you fucking die, being an activist is like the bar to being an activist is much lower, mostly because it's either this or kill yourself.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is the larger conversation about like what makes woke effective and what doesn't. In a country like Singapore, I'm just going to say this because, at least based on my experiences here, yes, Singapore has a lot of issues, but at the same time, because of my understanding of my home country, I know that woke activism is effective. It is leveraging change in that sense, so I cannot in good conscience say that it's a bad thing. Obviously over here, it's a very, very different story. To go back to the earlier example of, the female Ghostbusters, like in India, it's a non-issue because they're like, we have other shit to deal with. Cass is like, whatever, man. And just for the record, I liked the movie, so I'm sorry.
You're entitled to your shitty opinions. Yeah.
Like Joseph said, you can pay, man. You can pay for the ticket.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Kirsten Wiig, so I thought it was a great movie. But anywho, like I think that's the degrees which we have to consider, like the levels of activism, the levels of wokeness even. Like if Joseph, Ernie, John, Jerry, if you were to go to India and say that, you know what, the Ghostbusters female cast movie sucked, they'd be like, just shut the fuck up, dude. Just, we got other shit to deal with. So I think
I got money to deal with.
Yeah, and that's a whole other fucking...
Oh, I know.
So, and I think that's the level at which I think about, activism in general, and in my opinion, wokeness. So obviously, being a foreigner, there is not much I can say about the lived experience of Singaporeans. So I tend to, step back from that conversation.
But is wokeness, I mean, you say activism, right? And woke activism, is the woke part necessary? Isn't activism already the act of informing people, being knowledgeable about the things and all that?
Okay, so Gareth, I think I have a good example to this. This was the year 2011. This was in India. Corruption was widespread at the time. The government at the time was widespread, and it was a huge problem. And Twitter was very popular in India in the late 2000s. And so a bunch of people were like, fuck this shit. There was this, not a politician, but a figure who was, widely held in political circles as respectful. He decided to go on a hunger strike. And for some reason, this became kind of, a calling for a lot of the youth who felt like sick and tired of the current state of affairs. So because of Twitter, a lot of not activists, but people could just come together and talk about these issues. So one guy is ranting on Twitter, and then suddenly everybody's like, hey, me too. And then they say, me too, me three, me four. And then, very quickly, this became an early example of online activism in India. So people mobilized because of Twitter. People mobilized online. People mobilized because of, like, hashtags weren't even a thing back then. And so people came together, not because they knew each other, not because they were affected by it, but because they were tied by a particular common cause. So I think this is a positive manifestation of wokeness because, number one, it's about being aware of the issues that, affects you. Number two, feeling like you have some agency. So to answer your question, Garrett, I think wokeness is about being aware, and activism comes as a result of that. So those two do come together, in my opinion.
There's also this thing, right, where you can have two distinct solutions to a particular problem, and neither of it are like morally or objectively wrong, but depending on where you place your values at, that's where you lean one side or the other. So I mean, I can think of a lot of like in terms of like fiscal and monetary policies, of the government, so on and so forth. But let's just use a very simple example, right? So if, let's say, for example, the recent transgender debate within the sports arena. Now, I'd have to say, right, that this is probably one of the more compelling arguments that I've seen from the transgender side in terms of like, look, sports is not about fairness anyway, right? And to kind of like if let's say me and Jerry were to get into a fight, like there's no fucking contest, right? We are both men, but Jerry will
He just needs to sit on me and I'm done.
Jerry will beat the shit out of me.
He just needs to push me over, sit on me, and I'm done. Okay, I'm done.
So, but the thing is, like, not all men are created equal, and I think that's like a fairly compelling argument that, of course, I still disagree with them, but it forces you to lean one side or the other, not because it's morally or objectively wrong. There's nothing morally or there's nothing like objectionable about having a trans woman compete in female sports. What becomes objectionable is kind of like the monetary value attached at the end of it, right? That's what they are fighting about, which is the prize money and so on and so forth. But in terms of allowing participation, it's a completely different story, and it's not necessarily about what is right or wrong. It kind of just depends on like how you see the world, and the activism in this case, right, is more about affecting change, but it's not about saying like we need to right some evil. It's just saying that, look, we need to be inclusive, and that's like the moral standpoint of the people who are on that side, so called.
Yeah, in that situation, I also felt that there was a lot of misinformation regarding the trans athlete, the whole trans athlete saga, and I think in that the woke side was trying to inform more of that, and the people who were making fun of it, like saying, oh yeah, if I just put in a random guy in and he will trash all the girl sport, they're not equal, all that kind of thing, will lead on to another conversation. But I really don't want to talk about that because all the vaccine, the Me Too movement, all that is one episode in itself.
Yeah. Ivan, do you have anything that you want to kind of like chime in on this particular aspect?
Yeah, so for especially the transgender issue, right? Like, if you look at the outcome of the choices you make, then it's quite clear what decision you should take. For example, if we allow transgender women into female sports, and especially if it's very strength-based, if this becomes the norm, soon you're just going to see transgender women as the top athletes of the female sports. And then
that might not be the case, though. That might. I mean, actually, this transgender thing, right? Okay, first of all, I'm on your side, just let you know. But this thing, right, has been ongoing for a long time. I think back in which Berlin Olympics, right? Like the Russians tried to smuggle like 3 guys into female sports, and they all came in like 6th, 7th, 8th place. Like they're not even.
In the last Olympics, the New Zealand guy lost the weightlifting thing.
Yeah.
Serious?
No,
to a female?
he didn't lose. He
didn't come first.
He didn't come first. He didn't come top.
He bowed out of the thing. Okay, we do not know why he. Oh, okay, why we do not know why she bowed out.
She guys.
Okay, of the competition. But she is also like 40 something years old. So okay, whatever, right? But this particular incident, like it seems like fresh now, but actually it's actually an ongoing issue since like. I don't know, since like modern history basically, since like
actually, if I may, let me just throw this out there for everyone else. Not directly to do with transgender, but something for all of y'all to think about. Remember the US captain for the football team? Yeah, and she basically spoke out and said how they were not getting paid the same.
Oh
yeah. So
Rapinoe, her surname is Rapinoe.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now, I could say, okay, let's pay them the same. But then the simple economics in this situation is this. The number of people who pay to watch men play in the Olympics versus the number of people who pay to watch females play. If it's the same, then mathematically you have the numbers to play with. But if you don't, then where's your funds coming from?
Actually, in this particular case, right, the US football team, I was paying attention to the lawsuit that was ongoing, and actually there's a lot more interesting facts. So the first thing is the female team was actually offered the same contract as the male team.
They rejected it.
Offered the same contract. So the contract that the male team has is that, look, you can play as many fucking games as you want. You're not going to get paid per game. You're only going to get paid if you win something.
Okay.
Yeah. The female team was given the same contract. They refused. So they hired lawyers and whatever. They collectively bargained for a different contract. And the contract was they get paid on a on a kind of like they were given a salary. They were given a stipend. And then if they were going to if they won, they will get a payout, but on a lower scale than the male one, because they already have a salary.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I see.
All in all, it's like it should be roughly a wash the same. If let's say both teams won like the Gold the Gold Cup or whatever. So what became interesting about this particular case was that during COVID, the male team couldn't play, right? And because they couldn't play, there was no World Cup, there's no competition, they can't get any money. And then, of course, they are contractually obligated to, not get a salary. Yeah. Conversely, the female team, not having to play, still maintain that they want to receive their salary despite not having any games. And, so they kind of worn out in that sense as a result of the contract that they have leveraged upon. So if they have the same payout as the guys, they will actually be paid higher than the guys. Now, what's interesting about this case, right, is that the female team leveraged upon the, it's only because we are women, that's why we are being paid less, the narrative. Yeah. And that's where,
that's some woke shit, man.
Yeah. Now, it took us an hour and a half, but that is some woke shit.
Yes, correct. So I think we can all agree on this, in that when we don't understand the full context of the situation, right, where for the layman, I only knew about it very, very recently, maybe less than a month ago, about the salary that they have received, and they were still given a payout if they won. Without knowing that, right, I'm sure they purposely not have this information publicly available. You would fall prey to the notion that, it's because they're women, they're being paid less.
Yeah, no, because the very simple thing that the whole world got was, if you're a man and you won gold in Olympics, you got X amount. And if you're a woman and you got a gold in Olympics, you get X amount. Then the whole world looks at this idea as like, wow, chalat, yeah.
John, whatever you shared, right, I just learned about it. And seems like they were, whatever that fits my argument or fits my agenda, I'll just push out that one. And it just so happened the one that I push out, I have an angle. People will support me because I'm growing this angle, which is the women are being paid less.
Which is why I want this conversation, right? Which is
Gareth, and the funny thing about what you say is if you have enough people believing and buying into what you're saying, right, you win already, William.
The funny thing about this case is the US Soccer Association, they were the ones who presented all this the information that John was talking about the difference between how the men and women's team were paid. And they were the ones fighting against the women's team, right? And then it's hilarious because as the president of the United States, Joe Biden didn't even look at the case. He just I threw my support behind the women, and everyone was like, the fuck?
Exactly. And I like to bring up the interview. I think the UFC women's champion, Romney, what's her name again?
Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, Rousey. So she was asked a question in a press conference about the wages thing. and her reply was basically, the amount of viewers I bring, the revenue I brought in is this much, and he give me that cut. It's not like they're paying differently, man. That's why I got more than them. So I'm not gonna, I'm not bitching about anything. It's just, this is it. Economics,
Yes, economics is what I said earlier.
Funny thing is, sorry. Please go ahead, Joseph.
It's fine. I'm repeating my point.
Okay. No, the funny thing is the same argument was, I think the US women's soccer team was the one that repeated the argument from the women's NBA. The women's NBA was the one who brought it up first, I think, several years ago, and they were pretty much laughed off both both courts and the US courts, the legal court and the basketball court, because no one watches women's NBA, seriously. No one watches it, and they're not putting in the kind of money, and they're expecting the kind of millions that the male stars are getting. So yeah.
Okay, let me just read through some of the chats that we've received. PY Monchis says, being woke is such a turn off for me now. Virtual signaling everywhere. Do we have any single guys here? Like, is being woke a successful dating strategy? Like, okay, so Joseph, maybe you can.
Hey, no.
You're gonna get into trouble, Joseph.
he pointed.
She just walked out the door. I got a ring now.
No,
okay.
Cassandra, what?
Huh?
Cassandra, is it?
Oh, Rachel.
Cassandra.
Wait, why are there so many female names being thrown out?
Oh man.
Joseph, this is how you know you got true friends.
You must ask Ivan. Fucker just came back from Switzerland. You must ask him what Swiss Alps he went to trickle down some water from the
valley. So excuse me, why are you trying to imply?
Exactly.
Yes. Anyway, single man over here.
Yep.
Calling for the So I don't know.
I'll be sure to let the single ladies in the LongKang know. But have you ever tried being woke as a dating strategy?
Being woke, okay, not yet. Maybe not. That's why I'm not successful. Maybe I need to be a bit more woke.
I support the women's soccer team. I think they should be more
like a pickup line kind of thing.
Okay. I'll go into one of my favorite episodes, or one of my favorite series, right? Which is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. One of their episodes.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah, one episode, I think Mac, he decided to go join a protest for against abortion. Yeah, and then when he joined, he started dating a girl who was very against abortion. He went hardcore all the way, and then he ended up having sex with her, and she got pregnant, and then he was get an abortion. And he changed it around. So I mean, as a dating strategy, if they have a common fight, nothing brings people together than a common enemy, and the enemy has to be whatever case that they're fighting for. And would I say it probably will break the ice, it probably will get you to know the person, but can you lie to yourself if you're not really for that protest? But if you are, then sure,
Alright, let me okay, so ball play photo, I think that's Clipper. So he mentioned that the US female soccer team was offered the same pay, but they turned it down. Then after that they took the monthly wages lah. We have Josiah also same. He says that the US women national team lost to the Dallas Boys 0-15.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically, those guys that they lost to were high school soccer team.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but the argument is not the standard of football. The argument is
I just deserve it.
whether they deserve the money.
Yeah.
If you can bring in the crowds, they deserve the money, right?
And they're probably because in their clubs they don't get paid for nuts.
Yeah.
The thing is one of the problems that, or rather one of the things going for the WMNT, US WMNT is the women's soccer team. Sorry. Yeah. They did win 4 consecutive World Cups.
Yes,
the Women's World Cup. Right. So they were using that as an equivalent to argue, but no one watches the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, I mean not no one, but less people watch it.
A lot less people. Yes.
A lot less people.
Yeah.
Alright, and then we have Charlene Neo. She says, "Don't be a woke simp." I know. I think Charlene is attached, so she.
You wanna ask her who she's referring this to? Who's she directing this to?
If she will respond later, I'll let you guys know.
Actually, John, sorry, I'm a
Yep.
bit late, but to your question just now on the dating one, right? I don't think like woke as a dating strategy, but I will reverse it. Like, what if you met someone on the first date and that girl is a super woke or super unwoke person, whichever you don't prioritize? Would that be a problem for you? Will you still want to continue on
Are
with
you
the
asking
date?
me personally or
Like to everyone lah. Like let's say the girl that you meet is a super hardcore feminist.
maybe?
Or like
Okay,
super.
I'm just gonna answer.
Do we
Oh,
let,
sorry, John.
let's let Joel
John,
answer.
John,
What's going on? What's
John,
going on?
my answer very fast. My answer very fast.
Okay, go.
No matter which side of the fence you're on, if you are that much of a dickhead, I will just say it was nice meeting you. Here's my share of the bill, and have a good life.
Okay,
Because
I
then,
also have a very quick answer. What's the size of her tits? And then after that, I will.
yes,
I will
that
throw-
too,
yeah,
that too.
If
I'll
she's
throw the
woke,
question back to
so-
Joel. Joel, answer your own question after.
If she's woke, that means the size of the tits must be W lah. W lah.
Look like W also, is it?
the bigger the better. Okay.
I mean, guys, making this jokes while we are all guys, kind of. You're not woke enough, guys. You're not woke enough.
Hey, you realize that Jerry and Rindo hasn't said shit for this section or not?
I'm not single, but like in a hypothetical scenario, if this were to come about, it depends on what stage we're at. Like if somebody tries to espouse their political beliefs on the first date, I would consider that a red
That's
flag.
a big no.
Yeah.
Further down the line, we'll see how it goes, and it depends on attraction and a whole bunch of things. I know it's a non-answer, but if it's
But
the
it
first
would
date,
turn
I'd
off,
say
right?
no. Yeah.
Nice guy, Rindo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nice.
Very nice guy.
Thank you.
How about you, Jerry? Like, would that be a turn off for you? Like, she tried, like Rindo said, she tried to force her opinion.
Man, don't bounce around the answer, Jerry. Come on.
It definitely is because honestly
Yeah.
speaking, like when you see someone, or rather when I meet someone who has very strong opinions and like strong opinions to the point where there's no way that they're wrong and you're always not right enough, then
It becomes
Yes.
obnoxious.
there's no room for conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no room for conversation. So let's just be friends. We can
Yeah.
argue on Facebook or whatever, but no.
So I think that's the answer
Yeah.
that you have, John. In terms of-
I do have like a point to add, and I think this is add on to what Jerry said. I think a big problem with people's issue with wokeness is also about the imposition of ideas, right? Like I think there's a lot of folks out there, and I will consider myself one of them too. Like I think we assume that we know more than the average person, and I think that shows. So I think ultimately it is about having some level of empathy and also a realistic understanding of what you know. Because if you're delusional, then it's a bit of a problem.
You put it very well, Window. You put it very well. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, sorry, John. Yeah, continue with the comments.
Oh,
All right. Actually, Joel, do you want to answer your own question?
Oh yeah, it'll be a huge turn off for me. Yeah.
Turn off.
Like it'll just come off as arrogance, and I think this also speaks to her kind of core beliefs and her personal values. Like if, like Rindo also said, if on the first date she tries to impose this kind of her opinions like on you, and you're forced to choose a side. Like if you don't agree with me or you're the other side, you're my enemy, kind of thing. Then wouldn't that be a turn off for everyone? I think.
What
but that's how extreme. Yeah, the example you're giving is extreme.
Yeah.
Right? Like she's really pushing her agenda on you. But you see, if I'm dating someone or I just met someone that has very strong opinions and she fights for the thing that she wants, it's fine. But just don't be an asshole about it, right?
Yeah.
Don't go to the end like you have to believe me or you're not with me, that kind of shit. Then it's a turn off to everyone. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, correct. Having an open mind, not being so narrow-minded, only fixated on your point.
What if she's like really keen to debate? Like all of your ideas. And the sex is like great, amazing afterwards. Like you just
Wow,
debate
what if she look like super hot?
Now we're adding a little bit.
No, then I have to ask Ivan. What if she's Irene Zhao?
Oh, she can debate me all night long, man. I'm a woke sim. I acknowledge it. I am very aware.
What was that? Simplicity, integrity,
Sincerity.
sincerity. Yeah, there we go.
Personalities,
Anyway.
Aesthetics.
I'm sorry, guys. I had to Google who that is.
Irene Zhao, she
became a
raked in
millionaire overnight. Yeah.
multi-millionaire. Yeah.
I thought she didn't earn the money.
Oh, she's some crypto.
Okay.
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 Yep. All right. Maybe we move on a little bit as well. Like, from the point of view of you guys, right? Do you think as a whole, like, let's just kind of like average it out. Do you think like wokeness has been like a net positive or net negative for society now as you see it? Maybe we start. I think Ivan and Joel haven't been speaking a lot. I'll leave it to them. Like, either of you have like a answer, just please go ahead then.
For me, definitely a net positive, but I think we are getting to a phase where it's too positive. Then when it goes too far to the extreme, it gets a bit negative. Like, once you have companies starting to be overly woke and like, like, which of the 50 genders are you? And then, like, you have to support a company's stance on gay rights. If not, you're excluded, which is like the opposite of woke, which is inclusive. So yeah, I think once we start saying that, then we are getting too far to the extremeness of being woke.
So you think we've reached the precipice that we are on the verge of like just plummeting towards the negative?
Yeah, I think so. Once we get too far, yeah, it's not good for society. But of course, because Singapore is a place of privilege, so that's why we can have too much wokeness. But I think like Rindo,
that's a woke answer.
So I'm trying to sound woke here, guys. I heard it gets me dates. Okay, Joel, how about you?
Joel, do you have any? Yeah.
I'm not so in tune with this whole thing, right? But I think it started off as a positive thing. Like, they were really trying to, bring about good, the betterment of society or something like that. But I think as time goes by, people just use that as a convenient excuse or justification to bring their own agendas up. Like John, I think I agree with your point. Like, when people start to pull in their own, selfish reasons to try to justify certain things, that's where it becomes wrong. Like the football thing, just because they're women, they try to expect certain things, not looking at merits or results. They just think that, because I'm a woman, I demand, I have to have these kind of things, So that's where I think we are already in that stage already. Not only to women, like, no offense to women, but just in general, I think people are just using justification.
We have offended every woman. Just continue to offend now, it's fine.
You've already offended some women by not having women on this.
Exactly what I was. Exactly what I was thinking.
Even before we start, we already offended some of them already.
Yeah.
I mean, like woke has really pushed the conversations in certain areas, right? Like mental illness. Last time, who gives a shit about it? But today, people at least care to a little bit of genuine extent. But then there's people like not too long ago, Raisha Khan, right? I mean, she's the perfect example of taking it too far and then crumbling, even though her original point was correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm net positive. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm with Garrett as well. That's it. Simple. Period. Net positive.
All right, Rindo?
It goes without saying, I think it's a net positive. Yes, there are certain iterant issues that come with all this dialogue, but I do think it's also important to decouple, wokeness and woke culture in general with what are just natural behaviors, right? Like, we associate woke culture with cancel culture, but the reality is that cancel culture has been like all across different communities, right? Regardless of where you stand. So yes, cancel culture is always like, clubbed in with woke culture. And also I feel like we got to decouple wokeness from the left and right debate. So I think it's a net positive simply from the context of people who are being willing to engage, right? Like, there has been a long history, at least from what I understand, a long history of, folks in Singapore, feeling unable to, speak their mind or, having to, speak truth to power, as hokey as that phrase is. But now you have a situation where people are like, yeah, fuck this, I'm going to talk about this. So I think that aspect of woke culture has always been, a huge positive influence of society. Like, I remember in 2011, when I first arrived here, I went to this stand-up comedy club, and there were a bunch of like Singaporean comedians who were making jokes about like government and race and like touchy topics, so to speak. And there were great jokes, and they're talking about this intelligently, but then you could sense the discomfort in the audience. They were like, oh wait, can we talk about this? Like, is this cool? That situation doesn't exist now. Now people are more comfortable talking about this, and I do feel like the dialogue, around government, around the various problematic issues, people are talking about these conversations are evolving much better than it used to back then. So yes, it's a net positive period. Like, I wouldn't agree with the sense that it's zigging and zagging and stuff. I think it's just
it's rocketing to the moon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Jerry?
Yeah, net positive. But unfortunately, as with every good thing, there will be bad actors in the scene. They will take advantage of the infrastructure that's been built up. Like, say for example, if you're talking about why, I think I'm expanding a little bit on what Rindo said about cancel culture, which is everywhere. In the past, we call it boycott. You just don't buy something from someone if their brand offends you. But now it's gone to a different level where these bad actors, mostly younger people who are more tech savvy, unfortunately, who go into the little details, dig up personal details, just like completely destroy someone's life just because they don't agree with them, whether it's politically or they did something. Okay, if they did something wrong, like Bill Cosby, then sure, they deserve it, right? But yeah, they're bad actors.
That girl on TikTok recently.
Which one?
She took a video of a guy.
The Mr. Bean one?
Yeah, the Mr. Bean one, right? Perfect example, right? Thought the guy was staring at her, end up is watching Mr. Bean. And then her apology is like, she made it about feeling unsafe as a woman.
Yeah. So
the angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the issue, when I think woke culture is net positive because it really brings out a lot of things. You guys mentioned mental health issues, stuff like that. We're more comfortable with talking about them now. But there will be people who are taking advantage of this, the level of, the acceptance, and to come in and say their own stories and, manipulate things. Honestly speaking, like, Risa Khan is a huge example. I think she pretty much gaslit the entire freaking Workers' Party, man.
Yeah.
So I want to quickly piggyback on Jerry's point about young people more tech savvy. That point is very interesting and very it really pushed the agenda because at that age they are also very impressionable.
Yeah.
When you have all these kind of news and conversation that is going online, and sometimes people don't do their research, which tends to be the case.
Yeah.
Just forward and like kind of retweet and or maybe reword the retweet into their own line, and then it becomes a whole problem, and that's where most of the problem come about. Yeah.
Or if the subject matter expert tweeted on something about a certain situation, and it's like a series of like 200 tweets, and then they take that one that really aligns with their views, and then they say, yeah, this is the shit, man.
Yeah, kind of how I do my essays when I was in poly. Just take the part that I want to put at all.
Alright, so once again, I'm going to be the contrarian here, and I'm going to say it's a net negative. Okay, so I'm going to present my case, and I think I can sum it up pretty quickly by just saying Donald Trump. So I think there will be a reaction to the kind of like emerging culture that arises, and so the problem with so I'm gonna revert back to my original definition of woke, which is the kind of like segregated viewpoint or hierarchical viewpoint of the world in terms of oppressor, and then once you kind of like repeat that over and over again, right, there's gonna be people who push back against that kind of narrative, and then they will elect people, okay, or they will gather and they will congregate around people who will assure them, saying that, look, I'm gonna crush these motherfuckers into the dust. I would agree that wokeness would be a net positive in a world of perfect information. But we live in a world of imperfect information, and I think it's extremely imperfect to the point where it's laughably, ridiculous and patently just absurd to think that we can ever have perfect information. And in that sense, right, I think we kind of need to distill information to its like most common denominator, and I don't think how the woke people are trying to attempt it is working. I don't think distilling any issue down to oppressor/oppressed group actually helps. And all it does, right, is just give rise to people who are first of all willing to kind of like co-opt that movement and then like kind of turn it on and say like give the biggest fucking Uno reverse card of all time, right? If you look at, for example, like PAP, for example, like when Raisha Khan, I think Raisha Khan during the 2020 election made some, if misguided, but some pertinent points about, look, there's like something wonky going on in the justice system in regards to like people in the like the major religious groups or whatever. Okay, it's imperfect information. Like she didn't have all the information and it's not great. But for the PAP to then use that, right, to kind of like persecute her and then others saying that, look, you're offending religious people's feelings, I think that is like kind of like the ultimate Uno reverse card. You know, it's like they are using the woke against you. They are saying, look, you know, you're harming the feelings. You're oppressing people. You're using your power to go and leverage against people who don't have power against you, right? And all of it is just
that's the definition to how PAP has run this country, you know.
I think in the past, right, it wasn't so, I mean, for lack of a better word, manipulative. I guess in a sense they will just destroy you. They will just, look, I'm just gonna fucking say stuff about you, whether maybe it's truth, maybe it's exaggerated. Like I think like Chi Sun Juan is a pretty good example, where they basically fucking annihilated him with the power of the media, and that he has no actual platform to respond.
Mm.
I think it's very different now, where people can respond in a number of ways, and in a sense, right, I think it's not necessarily restricted to just the PAP. I think any ruling elite now have the capacity to kind of like pull this Uno reverse card and say that, look at this person, like, she is offending your feelings, and then if only you vote for me, I will make sure shit like this never happens again. And I think that's where Donald Trump can come in. I think Donald Trump, I think he's a net negative to the world, and I think for all of his good, there's a shitload of bad that contrasts his good, and it just becomes this thing where, do we really want to have this war of the extreme, right? It's always this cyclical instances of my Donald Trump versus your AOC, that this non-stop psychopath just like taking the reins and just promising you all sorts of shit.
It's strange to bring Donald Trump because, like, to me, he's very anti-woke.
Yeah.
He's always against the woke stuff.
But that's my point, right? Which is that
the overcorrection.
Yeah, they bring up all these points as a way to kind of like rally you to their side, and in that sense, right, they've become the woke one. They have now turned the narrative to say, look, you are being oppressed. It is you, in fact, who is oppressed, the white man. So if only you vote for me, I will make sure that all these brown people do not oppress you. So it becomes this kid's game, right? It's a children's game of.
He did it so well.
He did it really well, though.
You say me, right? I am mirror. You are glue. I just hold a mirror, then it bounces back. But you cannot hold a mirror. You are glue, right? The insult will stick on you. So, it's just this never-ending bullshit. I just cannot tolerate it.
Well, I just want to say that, with the context of Donald Trump, yes, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of reasons why he, came to power the way he did. But I think he tapped on something bigger than just being anti-woke, right? He tapped on nostalgia. Like, a phrase as simple and as evocative as "Make America Great Again." Like, I'm not American, and I'm like, whoa, that, I get that. So, tapping on nostalgia is like such a core aspect of a lot of populist movements. Whether it's right or wrong is not, my place to say. But, I think that also plays a part in it, like the good old days back then when we were the best. And I think that plays a huge part in it. outside of just anti-wokeness. So I think that's an important thing to probably highlight.
So the way that I would think about politics, right? I don't even look at it as conservative or liberal anymore. I look at it as status quo versus chaos. So if you're part of the status quo, i.e. the conservative, you are trying to preserve as much as you can. Essentially, whatever the status quo is has benefited you to a point where relinquishing it, right, means the end of something, right? Maybe it's your privilege, the comfort in your life, so on and so forth. And then for the people who are fighting against the status quo, they represent chaos. They are trying to introduce change into society. I would make the bold suggestion that wokeness, right, is in a sense the ultimate chaos, and that they are really so in a sense what you guys have been saying this whole time, right, is that okay, we are now not afraid to discuss such matters anymore. They have introduced a change, right, that is irrevocable, right? It's not we can't go back anymore. And how as a politician 101, right, how do you like counter this kind of narrative, which was just say, look, let's just go back to the old days. Let's maintain the status quo as much as we can. And I think that's where, like the very regressive type of politics really can like rear its ugly head again.
I agree. I agree with you. I think that's it's almost like a standard playbook, for politicians like that. So.
And I think there are meaningful changes that we can enact in society that doesn't involve wokeness. Like we can kind of like single out issues to say that look, this is something that we have to change. Like 377A cannot exist in Singapore any longer. Like we have to change that. Okay, so there needs to be debate, there needs to be whatever, right? The change will occur. Like the chaos is inevitable, right? But to try and demonize the other side and to try that, look, we have to change it and we have to change it yesterday. I think that's where the people who might have been originally receptive will now hide further into their shell and to say, look, I'm just gonna elect this guy that's gonna solve all of my fucking problems. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to fucking argue with you. I'm gonna get this guy and he's just gonna like fucking send his Praetorian guards and just like send everybody into prison that I disagree with, and then after that, my good old days are back. So I will say yes, being woke is generally a net negative. That's my that's my contrarian take. Yeah.
And after you bring in Donald Trump, I think the negative thing is becoming stronger.
I am pretty good at convincing people. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very strong point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong point. Seriously, it's not just the US. There is a very big growing movement of conservative movement in Canada as well. I've been following up with my friends, but unfortunately, I'm also getting a bit sick of the post.
I think Ontario is basically on the verge of just becoming its own country.
Yeah, it's very irritating right now because in North America, like American friends, Canadian friends are so polarized that you don't really want to engage in conversation with them. It's just that it's and we're not there, so I don't even want to ask. Yeah, I think Poland also recently. Oh, actually not recently, but over.
Yeah, I think Hungary as well, right?
Hungary, Poland. The states that are bordering the former Soviet bloc, they are turning back into more conservative. Yeah. And
we have like in Italy, Mussolini's granddaughter is making a comeback. Fucking Mussolini's granddaughter. I mean, in any other context, in any other time period, that would have been like a death knell for your political career. But now it's just like, I am fucking Mussolini's granddaughter. Like, that's a positive. So, yeah, I mean, it's tricky. At the same time, I agree with a lot of you guys and the insight that you have provided in terms of there is some good to be had in terms of the conversations that we are having, but I think big picture wise, we are sliding way fucking back. All right, and any of you guys have something to like continue down this path? Like anything else you guys want to add on?
Yeah, I think because like a lot of the woke, let's say in Singapore, right, they don't seem to think through before putting their shit out there. I mean, for example, for a while there was a couple of posts I see going around about complaining about decorations on Orchard Road. Why is it always only Chinese stuff? Why is it always only Chinese New Year stuff, whatever? And then they just say, are the malls in Orchard Road, is it because they are all racist, right? And for me, it's like, just put a little thought into it. Maybe on the corporate level and all these malls, there's really, maybe there's no minorities in the marketing team. It can be something that can be talked about in that sense, and then maybe you just create something where you go and educate them. Maybe you should care a little bit more, and you can start the conversation that way instead of adding like, okay, they're racist, let's just boycott, or let's start a divide. And a lot of it has been very like add to the divide rather than let's just talk, or like let's try and educate, not like try and like piss them off. Let's just there's not enough of that where it's just education, as simple as that. Yeah.
And let's just heal the divide with Iris Co.
Yeah.
They're the ones causing the divide, man.
No, but to be fair, like I think the Complaint Singapore group was also talking about Disney characters in Orchard Road. They're like, oh no, this is not the spirit of Christmas. So I think people whinge about Mickey Mouse too. So
Yeah, people will just generally complain about
Yeah.
anything and everything.
Yeah, no, I think Singaporeans, even before this whole thing came about, like they were complaining about shit way before already.
We've been doing that all our whole lives, man.
Yeah.
Even our parents' lives and our grandparents' lives, they've been complaining about shit.
It's easier to take pot shots, right? Rather than be the ones doing it. Like if you were the one doing something, you know the ins and outs. Like I probably shouldn't say this too much, but okay, I have a friend working in a certain ministry, and
Oh shit.
and usually whenever people complain about all the new things coming out, right, they'll be like, we work very hard, we work very hard to ensure that all the minority groups all will get like equal treatment, everything is hit properly, then we roll out this plan. The reason why it's so slow is because we have to look through all these things, engage with the residential groups and whatnot, and it feels very disheartening for a more junior government employee, because to them it's like, hey, we really worked really hard over the last 6 months to get this thing out, and then the moment it rolls out, right, no good news. Everyone hates it, everyone spits on it, and after a while they're like, you know what, fuck this shit, fuck people, fuck the Singaporeans, we'll just do what the fuck we want. And to a certain point, I think there are some things that PAP does is that we'll just fucking roll it out because everyone hates it, but we have to do it anyways. We just roll it out,
Yeah, totally agree with that. You have to push it out. Sometimes it's difficult. I think some of the consensus is like when last time when Lee Kuan Yew ran things, right? He just did it.
Yeah.
Nobody really complained, and it's just we're kind of lucky that he's not corrupt or anything, because the amount of power he had and the amount of way he pushed. He did an amazing job to get Singapore where it is, right? We cannot dispute that. I think even the oppositions cannot dispute that. But the way he got there, he also did some stuff that were not not through proper process, and you like it or not, I'm gonna take. He had like the way his famous speeches had, he had the iron in him, and he could do it. Yeah, and overall, I think for a country to progress, this type of decision needs to be made. If not, you're in a standstill, like kind of like what the US is facing. 50 here, 50 there, and we're not gonna push. Or if not, I will do what's the recent problem? What's the thing called? The one where they talk to delay the bill. I forget what it's called.
Infrastructure bill.
Yeah. So a lot of situation. But in Singapore, when we were moving, Lee Kuan Yew was still in power. He really pushed forward the agenda, and I really thought that we are only where we are today because difficult decisions were made.
And I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. I feel actually, if you look at it, Singapore is really a very woke country. If you think about it from the perspective of like what all the people in all the woke culture is complaining right now, it's baked into the constitution. We started very early on with public housing and public transportation, sanitization policies, all these things. Like very early on, we adopted like child vaccination and stuff like that. So Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man.
The protection of minorities in the
Yeah, so Singapore actually is a very woke country to begin with.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So maybe moving on from there, right? Let's talk about what are some of the conversations you think wokeness have opened up in recent years. Maybe Joseph, you haven't said anything in a while. Do you want to get the ball rolling?
What kind of conversations are you referring to?
Like just examples that you can name off the top of your head, or you agree with or disagree with. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get a drink, but you guys go ahead. I will be hearing you all the way. I'm just nearby, but Joseph, please take the ball and run with it. Yep.
All right. I don't know what you guys think. Like, if we were to take one topic and talk about being woke about it and being open, like in Singapore's context, I really don't think a lot has been spoken to the degree of medical care. That's what I think. And Ernie and I, at least to a certain degree, know that because we used to volunteer for a charitable organization. So we've been in the system to some degree. And I think people who come from that side of the fence have a very different idea of what being woke is. And they probably be looking at all of this and going, oh, but you haven't lived a life of A, B, C, D, E, so what do you know? And they're well-to-do, they're corporate people as well, but because they've seen a different side of the coin, they view life from a very different spectrum as well. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, like just jump in, man. Like medical care. Rindu, you can compare India to here. I think that'll be a great eye opener for us.
Yeah, but Joseph, we can't compare medical care between Singapore and India. I mean, there's Singapore's medical care, and then there's nothing. So, okay, I joke. I mean, look, look, I'm from India, so I can make jokes about my own country. So, no, but I think the medical infrastructure took a massive beating, because of the pandemic. I think it just showed how, on the edge we are in terms of, whether we can, provide for our own people. So that's almost too easy a comparison. But I will agree with you, Joseph, in the sense that the conversations around medical care in Singapore are changing simply because of conversations online. So we are hearing a lot more about the grievances of doctors and nurses in the last couple of years. I'm not saying this is specifically because of woke culture, but there is a certain level of empowerment that people have, right? Yeah. There is a friend of mine who is a doctor, and I'm not going to say that he's afraid to speak out about this, but there are many reasons for him not to,
I think they won't. My friend as well. My mom's a nurse. She won't say it out loud. She would never say it out loud, right?
Yeah.
When I use the example of the Malaysian nurse who she's 23, 24, and she killed herself. She jumped from SGH, right? But what? Okay, and then we all just talk about it, put a candle outside, and what?
And then we clap.
Yeah, you never clap. Yeah,
we clap at 8:30.
Yeah,
3 times.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's
right. And then what do? You take SIA flight stewardess, put them in another uniform, and then pay them $3,000 to do shitty ass jobs. Looking pretty and walking around hospitals, while nurses been doing this harder jobs for over 2 decades, 3 decades, getting paid $2,000 lesser. So you tell me.
Yeah, no, it's rough.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's a one key fits all, but I'm trying to open conversation so that you guys can see what I see. And I've been on both sides of the fence, man, receiving the treatment plus people giving the treatment. It isn't as perfect as you think it is. And why I mentioned you, Windu, to jump in this is not because oh, India has got no medical care. No, it's more importantly because you came from there, that a voice of yours coming from that situation. What would someone like you say to people like us? Hey, fuck you guys. At least when you go down right now, you can go to the hospital and someone's going to see you, right? But that would be something as well, right?
Well, Joseph, I've come to learn that using the think of the children in Africa argument isn't exactly the best one.
Correct.
So I know I used that earlier in the episode, for illustrative purposes, but like just because things are shit in India doesn't mean that the problems happening here are not, valid or something like that.
Yes.
So, and I'm not going to lie, early on when I first moved here for the couple of years, I was like, oh no, but what are you talking about? You have it great here. And, my Singaporean friends schooled me, telling me to shut the fuck up, I had to learn that way. So.
I think, John, to get back to your thing, right, to talk about just simplifying openness of conversation. To be really honest with you, I think Singapore only has, and that's just me, so I'm just going to say it. They're very good for doing this and doing this. That's all. But they're not going to have...
What is this?
Keyboard warrior?
Keyboard.
Exactly. Exactly.
All of us keyboard warriors.
I was thinking about something, I don't know.
No, that's just two fingers.
Something non-sexual, but okay, that's...
but no one's got the kahunas to go out on the street down there and put their money where their mouth is. That's the truth. And that's the truth.
I think in terms of in Singapore, there is a bit of a dependency on the government to solve our problems, and that the idea being that, look, if I just simply make enough noise to my MP, then they'll just like pick up the slack where so I don't have to. Like, look, if I need to pay like another $300 more in taxes, then so be it. Something along those lines. There's a bit of a laziness in terms of like being politically charged. If you look in other countries where the federal government or the central government it doesn't have the long reach of the arm like in Singapore does. And then when you deal with local politics, everything is shit. Your roads are shit, schools are shit, the buildings are shit, everything is like complete fucking garbage. And whether you vote in this guy or that guy, they're just the same corrupt motherfuckers all around. And then it just kind of like falls upon the people to say like, fuck it lah, you know what, I'm just going to pick up a shovel and just solve this thing myself. And I think in a sense we are kind of victims of our own efficiency and effectiveness. I think Singapore has been quite well off in that our government has been effective in a lot of things, a lot of different things, and there doesn't seem to be a reason for us to go out and do something. Which is why often in the news when you see somebody like there's this guy who opened up a soup kitchen and he serves like 700 people a night or something like that, like some entrepreneur guy, right? Like I thought that was a good thing, right? I thought that was the kind of like social philanthropy that we need right now, right? More than just simply getting the government to solve our problems. So going back to the woke issue, right? I agree with you in that. What is the in a sense the reverse is happening on the other side, which is like we are complaining about all these problems, but we're not actually doing anything about it. We don't have the political capital to say, look, I want to effect like real change. I can't just elect the other opposition party, right? And that we tend to get like pretty lazy in terms of getting what we want.
But there are a lot of policies that prevent us from doing it. I'll give you a simple example. Are you guys familiar with Kranji countryside? Nutio Lane, where your fish farm.
I know where this is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Now, that belonged to generations worth of people, right? And the people swept in and basically took all the land, right? And now they're on leased land when it's actually based on owned land, right? Okay, and now They even took away it's a simple thing like a shuttle service that used to be there for the longest time, right? It cost like $3 to get a ticket. That's it, right? And the government didn't even set it up, by the way. It was the Crunchy Countryside Association. That means it was all the farmers put their heads together, put their funds together, and set up this shuttle service. And now that service doesn't exist. So how do you expect the locals to support your local farmers if you don't even give that service?
Yeah, okay. But Joseph, I think we're bringing in a lot of side topics, and all of them link in a way how woke kind of complements with all this, from politics to all the healthcare to all these small issues. I mean, we can see how woke culture have a role to play. But I think all these things, I don't want to discredit what you just said, but then I want to bring back some of the attention. Sorry, I don't want to take attention away from what you just said. I just want to bring some attention back to our topic at hand, which is woke. How about an overlying question that we can have is, what can you do or what can we do to fix this culture so that it will best make it a positive instead of negative? We want to drive it to the right direction. So what could we do? Maybe a question to everybody in our panel today.
I think that's a good way of putting it. What exactly can we do in our capacity?
I will just bring out an example of there was a news recently in the US about the first time there's a federal execution, like a federal death penalty execution that was conducted in the first time in 17 years. Now, if you hear this headline for the first time, you'll be very surprised. How can it be the US only have the first, death penalty first time in 17 years? Well, to be specific, is that it is a federal death penalty. That means, so the individual states have their own death penalty, which they enact. Now, for the federal level, the reason they only have the first time in 17 years is because in the US, right, the rights and the privileges of the prisoners and all that is enshrined in the Constitution, and they have to conduct the execution in a certain way, very much like Singapore, right? So you remember the guy who trafficked drugs from Malaysia, he kena COVID, and then his execution was delayed. So there are a lot of people who just like, why is that delayed? Because they need to do it by the book, right? They cannot have any external factors messing up the execution. Same thing in the US. So for them, their choice of execution style is a lethal injection. Now, in order for you to inject something into a human being and for them to die within a matter of minutes, it's actually a very precise and very complicated cocktail of drugs that you need to implement. And not only that, because they want to set up a system, right, where they don't want to burden the conscience of the person who is pushing the plunger. They actually have like systems, right, where 4 person push the plunger at the same time. So you don't actually know which plunger killed the person. So, but all 4 plungers need to inject the same colored liquid into the prisoner. Now, all of this, right, is an extremely complicated series of events, and it's just very, very difficult to execute. And to the point where there's only one pharmaceutical company in the whole of the US that is capable of providing such a cocktail of drugs. Now, when you load all of your eggs in one basket, right, then that's when trouble is gonna brew. And then what happened was activists came up and petitioned the pharmaceutical company directly, and the company agreed they will stop supplying the drugs to the US government, and that's why the federal level execution has stopped for 17 years. So what does this story tell us? What this story tells us, right, is that we have to kind of like enshrine the right of the individual. And when I say individual, I mean like every individual, and a company is an individual, right? When you register a company, the government supposes that the company is an entity all on its own, and every individual, right, must have the right to say no to the government. We have to be able to say, no, fuck you, cooperation is not a prerequisite for functioning society, and we have to kind of like acknowledge that, and to, in order for woke to be effective, we have to say, I am going to go out and I'm going to solve my own fucking problems. I'm going to petition the company, damn what the PAP says, you are not going to supply ropes to the Changi prison anymore, like something like that. I mean, ropes anybody can supply, right? But I suppose if you reach out to enough rope makers, then we can theoretically stop all execution in Singapore. But you know, like they all have to be on board, right, and say that, look, I'm not going to be a part of this system, and I cannot be persecuted for my choice in resisting the government, because the government is not the moral pinnacle of society. Yeah.
I think adding on to what John said, also to answer Joseph's question, like the whole woke culture is actually the answer. Like if you have enough woke people educating, having conversations online, once you gather the masses and get the momentum rolling, and then that's where activism comes in. I think I exposed what I've been looking too much.
Do you own the stocks?
Yeah, you caught me.
Oh, no.
Yes, activism. Yeah. So once then activism comes in with enough, like the woke culture providing the conversations, the momentum, activism comes in, and then that's where the change happens. So in this case, and that you see that woke culture is a positive, and it's also the solution to making the change.
Alright. Anybody else going back to the original question, which was does wokeness open the doors to like certain conversations that we were not having before? Okay, I know Joseph and Rindo kind of answered it. Anybody else want to chime in?
For this question, I feel like it's more of like the rise of the internet era allows conversations to happen, and wokeness is part of the one of the effects that arose from the internet era, because people are able to share their views a lot more. Internet is more accessible to the public. We are able to educate ourselves more. We can be more woke, and that's where we are now. It's like, so for me, it's more of the internet opening the doors to allow people to be woke. And then on the flip side, because of the internet, we are actually now starting to go backwards because of how, the internet logarithms just feed you what you want to see. So in the end, you're becoming less woke because you just read the same views. So in that sense, we are actually, the internet have caused us to be woke, and then it's now going backward.
There is no answer.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, but no, I like the internet thing because a behavior that I noticed about myself as well, and I think many people do, is that after you're watching a YouTube video or any video, right, the first thing you kind of do is scroll down to see the comment section. And then it's missing if you use YouTube on, let's say, the PlayStation platform. There is no comment section. So you have to form your own opinion. You better form your own opinion. Most of the time, people
watches YouTube on the PlayStation platform.
Calm down. I don't usually do this. I just did it once and I realized the comments. So,
he's telling you he has a PS5, okay?
Yeah, so the thing is that in order to form your opinion, you need to have a PS5. Okay, so never All right.
Everybody get a PS5 right now.
Invest in Sony as well.
Can you imagine if you watch a movie trailer, and you really like the movie trailer, but then you didn't know the comments yet. But when you scroll down and you go and see it, and it's all hate, right? And then you suddenly just don't like it. It's like that meme, Like the expert go like, oh, I think this wine looks pretty good. And then the person tastes it, oh, this is swine, it's disgusting. Then the person like, yeah, disgusting. just follow the opinion of the
mentality.
That's a great point, really. No, I'm just realizing that, that's something that I do too. I'm like, first I go on to Reddit threads or whatever, and then when I see that the movie sucks, it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting though.
It reminds me of the trend that like tanked the Merlot like market in the US.
The movie, right?
Yeah, the movie. What's that? Fucking the Paul Gutierrez, the guy.
Yeah. I forgot. I wanted to watch that as well. He says a comment. He had like a comment that he said like, I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot, and Merlot just tanked.
Yeah, the like everybody suddenly who, they think that they are wine connoisseur. They're just like, oh no, I'm not gonna drink that shit. And yeah, there's a certain like susceptibility for people to just pick up any like the first piece of shit that they see on the road.
I think that's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think we do that in the first place? Like, is it because we want to be on the side of the majority? Or
It's
is it
human
because
sociology. It's
we
what
want
we
to, we are lazy to form opinions? Like what is it?
Conforming to people. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway, the movie is Sideways.
Oh, sideways.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for
maybe-
that. Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
sometimes
yes, I've seen that one. Yeah.
yeah, maybe sometimes you don't want to be seen as being different from your friends, you know. Like
So peer
sometimes
pressure
having,
in a way also, like
it's true. Peer pressure. Yeah, like, you know,
It's like-
especially if you're a teenager, right? The more you know the joke, right? Hey, I'm a teenager, I want to be special, and then you have the same opinions as everyone else.
it's in our innate need to
Yeah,
be like
to
accepted.
conform, right? Yeah.
So like it's kind of going back, like if you get enough people to say that something is bad or something is good, then you can sort of influence the rest of them to think
Yeah.
the same way, right?
It's actually a topic of one of my longkang stories, which I delve into like AI.
Big data.
Big data. Like there are companies out there that can like program AI so that they can like flood a particular segment of the internet with the opinions that they want to happen.
Manipulate information
Yeah.
kind of thing.
But of course, I mean that's a bit sidetrack lah.
Yeah.
I think that going back to, I'm sorry, Gareth. I will come back to
I
this
have
topic,
a very fast
yeah.
thought
Okay,
here,
please go
which
ahead.
kind of caught my attention as well. Do you realize that being different has become so mainstream that everybody tried to be different? Isn't that like the same thing of, oh, everybody needs to be woke, everybody needs to be different, so
Yeah.
different that everybody's trying to find their own niche. Everybody in school, I mean, I'm glad at my time it wasn't like that, but everybody's like different was a thing. And even media has portrayed that it's okay to be different, you have to be different. Then suddenly, I have to follow this opinion.
The current level of wokeness is you have to look different but think the same.
No, I think the current level of
Interesting.
wokeness is you have to identify different.
Yeah.
And then the identification can be fucking whatever, right? You just tell people that you're star kin, furry, queer, whatever, and I identify like my pronouns are Ziza, and I'm done. Like that's the extent of my personality.
One interesting thing about YouTube, right, is YouTube has removed the like and the dislike buttons, right?
No, they
Right.
removed the dislike. The
Dislike,
like-
yes.
Yeah, the like is
The
still
like
there.
remain,
Yeah.
the dislike is removed. You can still see it, but they're like, oh, we don't want public opinion to be swayed, So a lot of the YouTubers that I follow, they're like, we don't have any problems with the dislike button.
Yeah, but then
And-
what ends up happening, right, is somebody types dislike, then everybody just likes that comment.
No, but then you can delete comments. So actually, that I'm quite I'm quite affected. YouTube's angle on this is to protect content creators.
It's to protect the big brands.
Yeah, but it is to protect the big brands because
Protect the big
use
brands.
shit videos and people dislike it to hell, and
Yeah.
everyone knows that, and everybody make fun of it. But then what actually happens here is the content creator saying that we actually need this. Actually, it's available to them. The content creator can see the dislikes and like ratio.
Yes.
It's just the public cannot see
Yes.
the like and dislike ratio. Which actually it goes back to, we're not actually protecting content creators here. If you really want to protect them, then hide the dislike from them. But we all know who is it for, and it's kind of bullshit. So we can't, yeah. Sorry, that's my piece.
So we cannot see how many dislikes on like Justin Bieber's baby anymore.
Nope.
Yeah.
No. But Justin can.
Yeah. He knows.
He knows.
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna be so awkward because I like that song.
Of course you do.
I think it's a
Of course
catchy song.
The person who likes the Ghostbusters 2016, of course you like Justin Bieber. Look, you can have
Rindo,
whatever
I don't
shitty
hate.
opinions you want.
I'm with you here, Rindo. I don't hate that song.
It's a catchy
It's a
song.
good song.
I mean,
It's a good song. Yeah. It's a good
I
song.
mean, to be honest, like I didn't know who Justin Bieber was at the time. I just heard it on the radio. Like back in the day, it was radio, and we were like, "Oh, catchy song." And then you learn about the other stuff, and like, "Oh, okay."
I mean, it was popular to hate Justin Bieber at that point. That's why it was the most disliked video at one point.
It's not popular to hate Justin Bieber anymore. I think. That's it.
Oh, but props to you, Rindo. It's like if I like Justin Bieber like a baby, and everyone says they hate it, I'm just gonna say, oh yeah, it's a bad song.
There we go.
I hate
Part of
it.
the problem.
No, well, actually, so just quick side note, like I had a bet with my wife like 5 years ago. So at the time, I was like, yeah, Justin Bieber is gonna reach like, he's gonna be the biggest pop star in the universe. And of course, I failed the bet.
Yes.
But yeah, you're just saying. And then last year, Peaches came out. It's like the biggest pop song. So I'm like, kind of right. So
Yeah, it just took a while.
All right. I have a question from the YouTube chat. Natalie Chan, which is also my admin kitty, my administrator in the Discord. Thank you for the question, Natalie. If wokeness involves every single individual / entity being able to say no to the ruling power, is positive social change then contingent on said person's ability to rally sufficient support? So I don't think it requires everybody to say no to the ruling power. I think it requires some percentage of the people to say no to the ruling power. And I think this percentage is wholly dependent on how much freedom there is in the society. But if anybody else wants to pick up on that question, feel free to go ahead.
John, could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. If wokeness involves every single individual / entity being able to say no to the ruling power, is positive social change then contingent on said person's ability to rally sufficient support?
I think this question is more on the activism. I'm struggling so hard with this word.
To call activism activation. I'm okay with you.
But I agree with a question like, yes, in the end you still need the call to action, even if everyone is of the same mind.
No, her simple question is, would it mean that we need to get X number of people in order to start making change? And I think my simple answer is yes, you do.
I think all the activists in Singapore sort of shown that it's true lah.
Yeah.
I think anybody who has done anything has shown that it's true. Like, no man is an island, right? And I mean, okay, the simple fact of the matter is like, Lee Hsien Loong is not out here like paving the roads in Singapore, right? He's paying somebody else to do it. It just so happens he has more support than anybody else. That's just the simple fact of the matter. Like, I think if like the effect of the change that you want is proportional to the effect, is proportional to the number of people that you need to have on your side. Small changes require like smaller amount of people, and then large changes require either larger amount of people or more specific type of people, I would say.
Yeah, and if the changes that you want to enact are kind of taboo in a society, then you need a lot more people.
Yes.
And I think, was it a TED talk by Steven Pinker? I don't remember. He was saying something about, if the reason why protests are so effective is because it's not just you looking at your Facebook or your Twitter and seeing that other people agree with you. When you're physically there and you see like 100 other people physically there, and you're like, okay, I know I have 100 people here who are aligned with at least this part of my thinking.
I just got reminded of like Koh Boon Hwan like going to
the protest.
My god, yeah.
Belgium, and then like
Oh my
Greta Thunberg
God.
was there, and then he's just like, what a nice protest, Greta Thunberg was here, and just like what, like dude, like are you like so tone deaf to the point where you don't even like know what you're talking about? And yeah,
That's like the perfect example of performative wokeness, right? Like doing stuff because it's cool to do it at that point in time, quite forgetting that you can't fucking do that shit over here, Wasn't like Jolwan Vam arrested around that time or something?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, around that time.
The motherfucker got arrested like 50 times. I can't keep track anymore, but yeah.
If he gets arrested for farting.
Oh man, I do. I'm not sure how to answer that question really, because for me, I think what the question suggests is representative democracy, essentially, right? Like, you have like the Athenian democracy, which is everyone has a vote, and then it's simply a question of the number of ayes versus the number of nays, and then you have someone who would represent a larger population who would then speak to the positions in power. So it's a fairly established system, I would say.
I think the spirit of the question doesn't necessarily pertain to purely politics. Like if we were to look at, for instance, like NOC, for example, right? So we don't, in a sense, right, that it's meaningless to have the whole of Singapore turn against NOC, but it's more meaningful to have like Milo and whatever the big brands cancel their contractual agreements with NOC. So in a sense that the power lies in the hands of a fairly small amount of individuals. Of course, you can say that like the rest of us kind of like pressure them to do so, but end of the day, it's still up to them, right? Like it's still them like looking at the bottom line and still saying like, oh, okay, like what are we gonna do precisely? I don't think it's necessarily about the number of people. I think it's about the influence of each of those individuals.
Okay. I don't have any comments on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. It's getting pretty late. We typically leave the last half an hour for like final thoughts, final words, and anything you guys want to add. Please feel free also to plug your podcast, your whatever. If you have merch, please go ahead.
So, John, I do have something that I think should be highlighted.
Sure.
As much as I'm a big fan of what's going on right now, I think one of the challenges and problems with woke culture is the use of a lot of fancy words. A lot of what I used to do as part of my previous job was, in training, and it's very important to have a clear communication strategy. Basically read the room. If you walk into a room and then just throw in all these fancy words that you just Googled 30 seconds ago, nobody's gonna fucking care about that cause, so there was this Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app, there was this room that, I was on, and it was about some sort of activism that is happening in India. And, one girl was talking about a certain political figure and, called him, oh, but this stupid person said this and all that. And suddenly the moderator just, interjected saying, no, you can't use the word stupid. It's ableist. And, the thing is, look, the rudeness aside, the person who was talking about the stupid politician was kind of confused because she's like, what is ableist? And even I didn't even understand what ableist meant at the time. So I think there is a presumption among a lot of the woke crowd, left-leaning or right-leaning, to show off, the repertoire of fancy words, and this just put them all together and just throw it out there, allyship, and all that stuff, quite forgetting that there's a lot of people who don't know this, right? Like if you go to a coffee shop uncle and then say, yo, allyship, let's talk about that. Not saying that the coffee shop uncle is an idiot, but it's like out of context,
yes.
So the thing about a lot of communication is that you got to fucking read the room. And I find a big problem with a lot of, performative woke folks who are like, learn about something and immediately throw it out there, less to bring awareness to the issue, but more about grandstanding the breadth of their knowledge. Look at me, I'm smart, I'm amazing, I can use these fancy words. There are situations, like if you were to do this as a job, like let's say a woke activist were to do my job, they'd be kicked out of the room or the site. So I think the effectiveness of wokeness should also involve some level of communication strategy, being able to read the room, catering, tailoring the message to the audience that you're with. I know there's a conversation about, the work has to be done by, the other person or whatever, but I think there is some credence to that argument. And it's very important for folks to, if you genuinely want to reach out with issues of awareness and socio-political activism or whatever, read the fucking room. Yeah.
Well, I think you put it very, very well.
Nice way to end, man.
Very articulate.
Well.
Yeah.
Very articulate.
Super.
You couldn't have articulated it better.
Well, I have to say, it comes of years of reading the room wrong and getting kicked out of said room. So, just saying.
All right. I have a quick response to that. I think the general problem with wokeness is that they have co-opted certain terms and they have changed the definition of it. So I think a good example would be for example, racism. So in the past, racism is just the assumption of superiority of one race over the other, or the assumption of inferiority of one race contrast to the other. That was the old definition of racism, which I still subscribe to. But in a sense, right, the woke crowd has come in and co-opted the term, and now they have injected, this like power plus privilege equals racism. And
Right.
I mean, on the one hand, I agree with you that the definition and the terms need to be clear, and that you shouldn't try to be fancy for the sake of being fancy. But on the other hand, when you change the definition of certain things and you get into a conversation with others, they are still going to operate on the old assumption of the terms that you're using. But you on the other hand have like gone ahead and like 12 steps ahead of everybody else, and just like no, that's not what we're talking about here. And it's confusing as fuck for everybody else as well. So it's not even just like the inventing new terms, it's that the old terms are being co-opted and like shifted.
Right. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, that happens with language, unfortunately. And I guess those who want to, introduce new words to a dialogue, I think there is some responsibility on their part to contextualize it. I hope that's not a fancy word. So.
Yeah, I mean, personally, right, I will say that it's more their job to create a new term for it, rather than to contextualize it, because I think what they are attempting to do is to kind of like force the social change on their own. It's not an organic change. It's not like the word selfie is we can trace it back to like some forum in Australia. Like we know that it started in Australia and it kind of like evolved over the years into like different meanings lah, so called. But there is an organic grassroots kind of like origin to the term, and that despite how people may differ slightly in the usage of it, but we kind of like all have this implicit understanding of what a selfie is. But I think with, for example, like going back to my example of racism, where the people who are on the woke side already have changed the definition of it, and then after that coming to a conversation with said changed definition and trying to commandeer the conversation in that way, I think that becomes too difficult for anybody else to keep up lah. The normies, like I mean, I'm able to I can engage with anybody on any topic. If you want to change the definition of it, please by all means, just let me know. But I think for a lot of normies, right, this will just fucking go over their head, because like, why would you change the definition of racism? Like, what purpose does it serve? They can't understand it. So yeah.
Yeah. No. Agreed. Absolutely.
All right, Ernie and Garrett, like last words and parting words, plug. Please go ahead.
For me,
Parting words.
parting no,
I don't know. I think we said a lot already.
yeah, I think we said most of our piece. I want to thank you again for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you
like-
for joining. Yep.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having us.
thanks for joining.
And,
I think it's a very
if you don't have a partner on Chinese New Year or Valentine's Day, Ivan is available for $20.
Yes, the price is rising due to high demand. So
So 2 days are already booked already. Is it? Every dinner booked, right? If I'm not wrong.
yes, but you can outbid if you like.
I should fucking get into that business. I am sociable, I'm charming, I'm tall, I'm handsome. Fuck, I got the whole fucking package.
And humble too, I must say.
Humble.
Bring the work conversation during the reunion dinner. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, test it out, Ivan.
No, here's the thing, right? I can argue both sides. I can argue for the wokies against the wokies. No fucking problem. I will do it.
Walkies.
Alright, sorry, Ivan. Do you any last words or anything?
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting conversation. Like initially, I had a very simple idea of woke, and then we bring in like privilege, we bring in oppression. And so for me, it was very educational as well.
Alright,
So it was a good conversation.
alright. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's go to Joseph. Any?
Yeah, likewise. I think I'm glad we went all over the place as usual. And nice seeing the boys back again from GDRP. And Jerry, John, Rindo, nice meeting you guys. And
meeting you too.
very interesting points of view from each one of you. Very it's not conflicting. What's the word I'm looking for? It's different and just nice. It's just nice to not have everyone saying the same shit. You know?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Joel?
Yeah, I think like everyone said, it's a good conversation, and I think we can all just agree that each of us have a different definition when it comes to this topic. So yeah, learning new perspectives. And my biggest takeaway is it's never good to stay in the middle, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, it's always good to stay in the middle. It's always good to stay in the middle.
Rather get yeah, that's all.
Jerry, I'm with you. Jerry, I'm with you, Jerry.
Not having an opinion is having an opinion.
Yeah, see that?
All right.
This coming from a guy who came back from Switzerland and didn't get laid.
I eat all the fondue then.
Right.
Hey guys, at the time I was committed.
Yeah, but you're not anymore, right? So shit.
Ivan, I need to get you on with some of the ladies of the Longkang. Like, stay tuned, okay? Like,
He's been asking, but you never ask. He's been like, hey, when John gonna ask me on
okay.
for the LongKangKitties?
Now I know.
Okay, Ken, on deal, done.
Alright. Rindo, please.
No, absolutely. Hey guys, like I really enjoyed the conversation. I mean, there are a lot of points that I disagree with soundly, but at the same time, I think this is like a great opportunity to have this conversation. I know that John and I have locked horns on a number of similar issues.
All the time. All the fucking time.
So I will be honest, like when I came into this call, I was like, okay, this is what's going to happen. But as it turns out,
that for every conversation, every fucking time I get you on, you say the fucking thing, and then you end up enjoying yourself. Immediate right now. Immediate in front of everybody.
I'm constantly surprised.
Yes, you're surprised because it's fucking great. All right, just admit it. Rindo, just say you love me. Just do it now.
No, it is good. Like the guys from the Drunken Ramblings podcast. Joseph, Ivan, Ernie, Garrett, like great talking to you, and Jerry, always, great pleasure talking to you, and of course Joel. Sorry, forgot you. You're down there. Really nice meeting you guys.
Rindo, plug your podcast.
Right, the podcast is called Living Up in Lion City. I post an episode whenever I feel like it. It's
Dude, you need to. Up the
I need to up my game. I really do.
I love your fucking podcast.
Yeah, I think the last time I put one out was like in October.
I like the commitment level of Indians. We're like, yeah, we just come put it out whenever we feel like. Just show up whenever we feel like.
Yeah, no, I think there's just like a lot of life stuff happening, so I'm just trying to focus on that. But no, I will get around to it someday. So 2023. So let's see.
All right, Drunken Rambling Boys, one of you just plug your stuff.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share the plug. Actually, Ivan, can you take it away? Scrambling. Activision now. Bad boy.
I was like, Joel volunteer. I'm so happy. I just stay muted. Then suddenly the arrow come flying again.
Bad boy.
Alright, check us out on the Drunken Ramblings podcast. We post episodes every week. You hear our rants, you hear our conversations with our guests. We're drinking every night. Just join us for drinks. Yeah, it's just me. Yeah, check us out, guys. Give us a listen.
Yeah, we were on the Drunken Rambling podcast once before, so
yeah. That episode, I drank so much that I don't remember half our conversations.
Yeah,
you had to open a brand new bottle of Roku.
I had so much fucking fun. And I just drank and I drank all you fuckers under the table. I'm very proud of that.
Like, my last memory of the night, like we were still on the table talking, and the next moment I woke up in the morning in my bed. I was like, oh.
We were talking about like crypto, like we were a bunch of like crypto bros, right? Like fuck, it was amazing. Yeah.
Holder.
Yeah. Jerry, anything you want to add?
Anything to add? Okay, so stay in the middle.
Fuck.
Just stay in the middle.
There's a lot of gray in between, right? Don't be too black, don't be too white. Stay in the middle, right? There's a lot of nuances, in life. Yeah.
Right,
I mean, of course, when you want to act and decide to do something, then be decisive and pick a shade and go with it.
Alright, Natalie, once again, she said, and to Ivan, the person who said the biggest plus about Switzerland is the flag. Pun. Has forgotten about fondue. Wait, did you forget about fondue? I don't think you did, right?
No, I think she posted it before they talked about fondue.
Yeah. No. Wait, did you talk about fondue, Ivan? You did, right?
Fondue, I think, wait, was it Joseph or Joel who brought it up?
Yeah, I said you eat a lot of fondue there,
Oh, yeah.
but not the cheese lah. The other kind of fondue.
Did you
lah.
know?
I did. I had fondue.
Wait, is there another kind of fondue?
I don't know, Joel, are you being naughty?
Oh, okay.
Alright,
We're gonna ask that,
for the rest of you gentlemen, please stay on after the end of the live stream. Okay, I'll just a few parting words. But then for the rest of our audience who's listening into the live stream, thank you very much for listening in. I am your host John Wang and my co-host Jerry. We are from the LongKangKitties. Please also take a look at our podcast. We have it on Spotify and on SoundCloud and on various other podcast platforms. I would really want to thank the Drunken Rambling Boys and Rindo for graciously offering your time to come in to join this conversation. I really appreciate it, and that I just want you guys to know that I really appreciate all perspective in this matter. The reason I invited you guys is I know that this will be a great conversation. Okay,
Thanks for having us, John.
Yeah, no worries,
Thanks for
man.
having us.
All right,
Yeah.
and with
Yeah,
that,
thanks for coming on, guys.
that shall be the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for listening in. Check out the
Thank
LongKangKitty
you.
merch. You know what? The rest of you guys should check out the LongKangKitty merch. Okay, the stickers is the fucking greatest ever. Okay, and that shall be all. We shall see you next time. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.